Hello, whoever's listening, and greetings and gratitude. I am Azul, and this is my friend Vanessa. And we care very much about anything that is to do with the initiation, rite of passage, and the journey of soul. We would like to offer and enter conversations around three main subjects that we've identified. One is our duty of care as the living one. What do we do with our dead when they pass? How do we tend to them? What sort of ceremonies and rituals can we offer? And the second one will be around death, with an S, many deaths, different kind of death. And then the third one will be around a kind of death that is so sensitive and sacred, which is suicide. So we'll be together around 15 to 20 minutes. This is very close to my heart and to my soul and to my work, my life's work. So I will start with naming what we will talk about, which is, and then opening space for Vanessa to share some of her life experience. And so when my mother died a few years ago, as the eldest, I felt totally bereft and like this sort of falling into a void of what do I do? What is my duty of care as her eldest daughter? How do I tend to her now that she's dead? And how do I bring her to the shore of the ancestors, of our ancestors, our well and wise ancestors? And I was not, I didn't, nothing was transmitted to me. It was a land of absolute desolation and poverty, and I didn't know what to do. But I knew something needed to be done. So I dove quite quickly and profoundly and deeply into all the spirituality, all the religion, all the sacred work. And 40 days and 40 nights seemed to be a sacred number as far as passaging, whether when you're born, when you give birth, the community gathers around you and tend to you. And also when people die, there's a gathering of community if you have the chance to have one around you, that tend to you while you passage. So 40 nights and 40 days became a sort of a ceremony, and now a little booklet that I share with whoever wants to tend to our dead, to do ceremonies for 40 nights. I won't go into detail right now, but maybe it will come up. Otherwise, you can contact me and I will send it to you. But first, I would like to open space to Vanessa, a dear sister that I've met on Zoom, who is like me in France right now, from England, and we kind of have this braiding of different cultures. And what I said before we press recording is I feel that her and I share the same soil, that we from the same human forest somehow. And it makes me rich to know such person. So Vanessa, over to you, and anything you'd like to share around this 40 nights, 40 days, tending to our dead.
Thank you, Azul. I just want to share gratitude also for knowing you, and the place that you take in my life as an elder and mentor. Been very, very supportive to me. And when that really dropped in for me was last May, after I lost my husband. And we spoke a few days after that. I reached out to you, knowing how you work with grief and hold space for that. And you very generously shared with me, offered to me this ceremony that you had created yourself. And that 40 days and 40 nights ceremony really became such an anchor for my grieving. Not only me, but I have two sons, Emmanuel and Olivier, who were 6 and 3 at the time that their father died. And it was such a gift. To us, but also I think to my husband Vincent, because well, the way that he died was, as you touched on in your introduction, was suicide. So in the first instance, it felt to me like doing this ceremony, which is to help him transition, is to help the soul, the spirit of the person who has died to transition, to meet their ancestors. It felt really important that at that moment when I felt that I had been unable to help him in life, I was able to help him in death. So that was incredibly healing and important for me, and I feel also for him. Yeah.
Very moved. Yes. Can you say a little bit more how it supported you and your sons and Vincent and your place even, I feel?
Yes.
If you'd like to.
Of course. So the story that you shared was incredibly helpful for my children. So you asked me to visualize a beautiful wooden sailing boat, and that we had placed his body onto the boat, and that we had wrapped him in a blanket that we had woven in his favorite colors. That he was on this boat and he was traveling from the west where we were, and he was going across the waters to the east. There was an island in the east where his ancestors were, and they were waiting for him. And they had lit a fire and they were drumming, but to help him to get there, he also needed our help, because especially considering the way that he died, that he may quite easily get lost in the transition. That there were many aspects of his life that were unresolved. There were many things still tying him here, that he needed my help, our help, to cut those ties so that he could go, so he could make that journey and not get lost. So just that story, for a child, I was able to tell that story to my boys. Actually, the morning that they were going to visit Vincent and see his body for the first time after he died. And so I shared that story with them, and also what you had suggested, which was that they should take a gift to him. And so my eldest, Manu, he immediately said, well, I'm going to draw Papa a map. I'm going to so that he doesn't get lost. So that he doesn't get lost. And he created this most beautiful drawing with the boat, and we had a wooden figurine that we attached, wrapped in a blanket, which was cut from the cuff of one of his favorite jumpers in green. And he made this beautiful, beautiful map, and he wrote spontaneously on the side of the boat, "Spirit Boat." And that was his gift for his papa.
I really like to touch, if that's okay, Vanessa, to touch on being lost, because you've repeated a lot, and this is what, for me, initiated this, is my mother was lost in life, and she was, victim of addictions and alcohol and cigarettes. And that was the moment where I felt just like you said. I said, Mom, you've been lost most of your life. What can I do so you don't get lost through your death now, through your passage? And that was the sparkle. I really want to, I think this is such a gift for anyone who is saying goodbye to someone they loved who might have been quite lost in life, is that we can still do, as you said, we can still care for our dead. We're still in relationship. And this 40 nights, 40 days also enable us to grieve. To have a moment every day, it could be 10 minutes, 2 minutes, half an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is, but to go back to the altar we create for that person and to grieve. And grief, as you know, can be rage also, can be anger, because, there's possible anger, feeling of betrayal, feeling of abandonment, feeling of all sorts, and immense sadness. And can be nothing. Some days I remember feeling nothing, just going in my drum, going, I'm feeling nothing. And that, to name that I'm feeling nothing, is bringing a sort of legitimacy and welcoming all that is to be a human being. So thank you for naming that about being lost, because, and about naming that we, as the living, not only do we have a duty of care, but for our own grieving and our own liberation. Because what happens is this invitation after the 49th is when the person is in the arms of the ancestors in our deep imagination, that we have done our duty of care. There's a beginning and an end. That is the sacred gift of any ceremonies. We know there's a preparation, a beginning, a happening, an ending. But if and when we don't have any rituals, it could just be an endless. And for the children, thank you for bringing that. The children need stories. Well, we do, of course. And children, you might want to talk about that, but children love rituals. Not only do they love them, I feel they are rituals in their being. So, yeah.
Yeah, there's so much I want to share around that. But yeah, the French word is coming, the encadrement, the framing,
Holding?
the 40, the
Yes.
defined time to be able to go. We created an altar at the place where he died, which is the roundhouse, which was already a sacred space for us. And to go there every day and to just be present there. Sometimes the children would come with me, sometimes not. They would always take turns in wanting to light the candle, and sort of talk to Papa. But yeah, to have that defined time when I was really present with Vincent and helping him. And then at the end, on the 40th day, we did a second ceremony, well, two in fact. And the first one was actually one that spontaneously came from my son Manu. As you say, they are ceremony and they really identified with that. But he said that he wanted Papa to be on the land here with us. And so I explained that in order to do that, we needed to burn his body. And so he said, well, okay, of course. And then we can put his ashes in the ground here and we can plant a tree on him. And then when he when the trees are talking to us, it will be like Papa talking to us through the trees. Came from him. So it was just, they know what to do. They're yeah. And my children were also incredibly supportive for me in the process as well. Just wanted to name that perspective. Incredible. But yes, then to do that ceremony, we planted the tree with his ashes on the 40th day, and then in the 40th night, I gathered a group of our community friends, people who loved Vincent, and we went to the roundhouse and we lit a fire and we sat in vigil there all night to accompany him on that last step, that last transition. And it felt very important to me to do that, and also for the community to provide space for that, because Vincent didn't have, or he did have, but he didn't allow that support that he so needed. And so on the night that he died in the roundhouse, I wanted to recreate that in a way that, to make time, time is many layered, it can be circular, it can be not non-linear. So just to kind of bring back that moment where we were there, where we were all there with him and holding him, and supporting him and loving him. And especially, and we started drumming. It was at 4 o'clock in the morning, because I feel I know that was when he died, and we drummed through until the dawn. And then I felt that we all felt that he left. He was gone. It was complete. He'd gone to be with his ancestors, and his work there was going to start. And he would come back, of course, but for that moment, he needed to go. But then having that feeling that completion then allowed me and my boys and our community and our family to go, okay, now what's next with life? Not that our grieving was over, not by any means, but just there was a threshold. And then we were able to go, I was able to say, okay, now I'm going to put my energy and my focus onto healing me and holding my voice and moving forwards. Yeah.
There's a question that is emerging is, and I remember this time for you, feeling you seem so strong somehow, so clear, so you organized so much, and I wonder more for whoever's listening, what, if you know, you might not know, but what gave you, or who gave you so much support? Because you felt to me that something, conscious or unconscious, gave you, it could be a series of things, but what gave you that clarity, that clarity of movement somehow, that you knew what needed to be put in place, and you asked for help when you needed. There's something that I'm sensing that maybe wishes to come into the conversation, to be seen or heard or something. I don't know. It's an intuition. Let's see what happens.
There's many answers to that question. And partly I'm going to name what people told me to say, because it was a lot of it was myself, my own strength, and a lot of the practices that had been put into place in my life in sort of the preceding maybe 6 or 7 years, 8 years roughly, where I'd been moving in circles where ritual and ceremony were practiced. I was becoming in touch with the kind of more of a spirituality, but mystery, I think, is the word that I would like to use, mystery, and being open to, I guess, receiving messages and guidance from all beings. And so what the word I used after Vincent died was that there was a grace, that surrounded everything, the way that everything unfolded, the way that the right advice and guidance arrived at exactly the right moment, yourself included. So yes, I had an inner strength, but I was also I just stayed completely open and listening. And I followed what I was being shown to do, led to do, the songs that came, the healing sessions that were offered. Just there was so much. There was so much that I just felt like we were beautifully held by our community, which we had built, my family, friends, but also by all beings and mystery. There was something that just flowed, and I listened.
Thank you. Before we wrap up, because we've decided it's going to be, kind of, there is also something perhaps, something you shared with me is the ongoing offerings you make to the place where you live. So I was wondering about how the place herself supported you. I know you haven't named her, maybe because you're so entangled that I don't know, there's projection onto you, but I feel sometimes when I am very entangled with a being, could be a place or a river or the world, it's hard to extract myself in order to see. But what I remember from you and your sons, and when we work together, is like the amount of offerings you made. And I wonder if you could speak about the support you have given, but also received from the place, from the land where you still are, right? You still are there? Yeah. Yeah.
I've just, since being here, I have just immediately been trying to work with the land so that we were welcomed, and we live on 13 hectares in just outside a little village called Norsan. But there is woodland here, and there is a roundhouse that we built, and we have all sorts of beautiful wild beings as well. It feels like a sanctuary, surrounded by birds and insects and lots of wild creatures. So this place feels like a haven, and I've been getting to know the plants here, and just working with what's offered and what comes up, and the people that have come here too, help to sort of just to co-create and a really beautiful energy here. I feel like everybody that comes somehow contributes and leaves a trace of their heart, and it's a very special land. Well, I think all land is, though, but it just depends how we curate it.
Yeah, thank you.
With it, and with her, with them. It's
Yes, I guess the intention behind the question was to, wherever we are when we lose our beloved ones, that we can really tap into that support. And that could be a tree only, or, and we might not have a deep relationship like you have with the land, because you stayed in one place for a long time. But someone like me who's much more nomadic, to know that every river is connected to every river and every tree, and just to seek their support, because to do ceremony of 40 days, 40 nights for someone we love who died, in your case quite suddenly, and suicide being a difficult death for society and for. So maybe the third conversation we can add some more beautiful threads about suicide, not just something to be scared about, but something that is also sacred. Because I think you and I share something that is everything is actually sacred and longs for that to be so again. And this is part of what we do in these conversations, is to bring back the sacredness of everything, however difficult that is. So is there anything else you'd like to say about this 40 days, 40 nights before we say goodbye?
Just what you were bringing up is that, for me, is that, you know, about being afraid of death. We'll talk about this as well in our next conversation, but just that everything offered, every experience offered is an initiation. And if you're open to accepting it, there can be a lot of beauty to be found in amongst the pain and the grief.
And that's a really good thread for the next one. Will be initiation for people who don't have familiarity. And every initiation is a small death. So, you know, Vanessa and I, through the death of someone we loved, that was a difficult death in some ways, we also were initiated, and we went through a death, and we went through a rebirth. We all mature or ripen, perhaps. The soul ripens in those difficult experiences. And thank you so much, Vanessa. Is there any last word you want to say before we say goodbye?
It's never goodbye. Thank you. There's always more to be said, but I think that feels good for me. Thank you.
So any more detail about Vanessa and I and this 40 days, 40 nights will be at the bottom of the description. And thank you for listening. And thank you for all the support around us and under us and over us, and all the good intents. See you soon.